Meet Bullet Boy, the superhero I made as a kid. This is what he looks like now, over 10 years later. But this crazy evolution didn't happen overnight. He's had tons of suits and redesigns over the years. Some have always made perfect sense, and others have been surprisingly divisive. Today, we're diving into the history of every suit he's ever had to figure out what worked, what didn't, and by the end, we'll take the best parts of these designs and forge something totally new. I've gone ahead and divided all of these suits into their own eras. A classic era, where everything started. The experimental era, an era that nearly put the character in retirement. The reboot era, where I revisited Bullet Boy years later. And finally, the modern era where we are today. And as always, if you want to continue watching me build my superhero universe and learn how to build one yourself, subscribe so you don't miss the next video like this one. The classic era begins with the OG suit. A simple gray full body suit with blue accents, wide Spider-Man-like lenses, and hair poking out the top. This version even features a utility belt with holsters, used to hold grappling guns that he'd use to swing around the city, kinda like Spider-Man. I have really fond memories of designing this suit, thinking I'd fully cracked the code on creating an original looking superhero by having hair poking out the top. Totally distracts from those Spider-Man-like lenses. Maybe not, but I thought the gunmetal gray bodysuit would be a great fit given his name. I remember doing these drawings the week after creating Bullet Boy, and looking back, his design would change ever so slightly. The blue accents were just going all over the place. All over his belt, under or over his arms, and even kind of looked like underwear in this drawing. I eventually figured it all out, and this look right here became the definitive classic suit. But of course, if you draw anything too many times, there's a real chance that drawing something new could become more enticing. And if Bullet Boy was going to be like any other superhero out there, an upgrade to his suit would be inevitable. Now, this isn't the sort of upgrade that would replace the original. This suit is more meant to be an in-universe progression. The next few versions of the classic suit would mostly stay the same with minor adjustments. Small tweaks to the hairstyle, changing up the placement of the blue accents, and the shape of the belt buckle. Don't even bother asking what that thing on his chin is, because I don't even know. I just thought it looked kinda cool. Now, most of the Bullet Boy stories that I've told you guys about on this channel have featured these suits, but there was one story arc where Bullet Boy gets his equivalent of a symbiote suit. That arc that we all know from superhero stories where the introduction of a darker suit reflects a challenge or a greater conflict within the character for the story. Now, in the comics that I made as a kid, Bullet Boy never really had super dark stories, but it's in this unfinished issue that Josh is building a brand new suit. One that utilizes a brand new power source that could further enhance his powers by like 100 times. The idea was that BulletBot, now known as Hugh, would warn him that this kind of upgrade would be dangerous, that the power would go to his head and ultimately sabotage his prospects of defeating his equivalent of the Sinister Six: Tenebris, Shaka, Voyager, Bulk, and everyone else he had encountered up to this point. It was all very, very, very Spider-Man. Now, if I was gonna retell this story now, I would totally redo it. This chest-pieced feature would carry into other eras, but it all got its start in the classic era. And it's in this next chapter of Bullet Boy's history where things start to get kind of weird. But before we dive into the deep end, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the mission-specific suits. First, there's Bullet Boy's submarine suit, designed exclusively for the issue where Bullet Boy meets my other underwater superhero, Aqua Ray, for the first time. Their first adventure requires him to maneuver quickly at the ocean's depths and fight off whatever evil lurked below. I went ahead and redesigned it because I'm really excited to do this issue. Bullet Boy also has a space suit as well. I mean, he does already kind of have a suit that can withstand the vacuum of space, so it might be sort of redundant, but if the redesign looks cool, that's all that matters, right? The old one was definitely inspired by the one Ben Tennyson wears in Secret of the Omnitrix. I feel like this new one could pop up again if the story called for it. These classic era suits and stories are super nostalgic for me, mostly because I remember the exact time and place I was when I made them, but let me know down in the comments which of them are your favorite. I know I've been hyping up how rough the suits from this next era are quite a bit, but I do so for a good reason. They all take a major departure from the Bullet Boy I've been used to drawing for years. I mean, in some ways, he doesn't even look like the same hero. Okay, this first one, for instance. There is so much going on here, and it doesn't help that it's drawn in pencil, so it's black and white. When redrawing this suit, I'm doing my best to guess where the colors should even go, and I think the end result is interesting to say the least. It's got tons of smaller details and segmentations that would really make this suit challenging to draw over and over again. While I can appreciate the ambition here, I think there would have to be a really specific purpose for the suit if it was to ever appear again. Same goes for this suit, which actually kind of reminds me of Max Steel. Not that I even knew who that was at the time that I drew this. Either way, it's probably subconsciously influencing the colors in my redrawn version. This might be my least favorite design, but again, with the right function in the story, maybe there's a place for it. I have to imagine that these suits were just made as fun exploration of what an older or super upgraded Bullet Boy would look like. Now, I remember this suit was years later and stuck with Bullet Boy for kind of a long time. Tron Legacy had come out a few years prior, and seeing these edgy dark suits with glowing accents definitely sparked inspiration for this redesign. You can see in this original sketch that I did my best to differentiate it by adding all sorts of unnecessary detail. It's also worth mentioning that this was around the time that I got my first drawing tablet. So unlike before, I was really able to make things feel shiny and add glow to the accents. And man, for some of these drawings, if you couldn't tell they were made in 2012, the captions behind him in these drawings would be a dead giveaway. While this is far from the greatest suit Bullet Boy's had at this point, there are some ideas here that could be reworked into a future Bullet Boy suit. A suit that the modern, rebooted version of Bullet Boy could wear in the future. As bizarre and wacky as these experimental suits are, let me know down in the comments which one is your favorite. Curious to hear which powers you think each suit has. It wasn't long after I made these drawings that Bullet Boy's experimental era really came to an end, really coinciding with the end of middle school and the beginning of high school. For the longest time, Bullet Boy had been my favorite character to draw. But what did I have to show for it? One origin comic, a handful of unfinished issues, notebooks full of story ideas that would never come to be. It really seemed like as my focus started to shift to this new era in life, Bullet Boy would be left behind. Fast forward through all of high school, moving away from home, getting a new job, all the way to the present, and one trip back to my childhood bedroom reminded me of this character. It didn't take long after discovering the original comic to have all of the ideas I had for his stories start flooding back to my head. It was just like that scene in Ratatouille! And because I'd never stopped being creative and had continued trying to improve my art, I finally felt like I really had the tools to take some of these older ideas, improve them, and come to the table with a new Bullet Boy, now with a fresh pair of eyes. And it didn't go exactly as I expected it to. This is the beginning of the Reboot Era. Now, I know the term reboot has a bad connotation these days, but I figured in this instance, since no one really knew about Bullet Boy, he could really benefit from it. Now I could finally make the stories I wanted to make. So for the first design of this rebooted Bullet Boy, I just took anything and everything I thought would be cool for a speedy superhero and tried to incorporate it here. I started to gravitate towards this nitro-powered suit, something kind of fun but industrial at the same time. So I pulled specific inspiration from a fighter helmet, anything to make him look super fast, edgy, and cool, while trying to loosely maintain some of the original elements of the classic Bullet Boy suit. The silver, the blue, the hair poking out. Now this first drawing was far from perfect, and really feels like a jump from the classic suit. Here I was thinking that no one would care about a redesign for my old superhero I made when I was a kid, but when I posted this redesign on TikTok, many people thought I really missed the mark, which was really funny to me because I never expected anyone to care about Bullet Boy or have a preference for what he should look like. So it kind of inspired me to try it again. How much closer could I get to the classic suit while maintaining some of the parts I liked about this reboot suit? Mainly the boots, the edginess, and the cyan accents. Just kind of having fun with it, you know? This suit really was just an exercise in combining two ideas, maybe not even that well. This suit was not going to stick. It was after I finally decided that none of that was really working, so I took a step back and decided to go in for a complete overhaul. We're going back to the normal gray and blue. I wanted to see how close I could get to the original by really simplifying everything while making sure he was still really fun to draw. This suit has eyes reminiscent of Spider-Man's lenses, but I kept the cyan green and tried to segment the blue sections in a more Marvel way. I got a lot of use out of this design. For better or worse, it was simple, easy to draw, and felt like an approachable way for me to start retelling Bullet Boy's stories in cartoon form. There's no doubt his reboot era saw a wide range of takes right off the gate, but to be fair, they really laid the groundwork for the modern designs that were right around the corner. Everything changed when I made my first long-form video about Bullet Boy, in which I tell the story about the time I wrote a letter to Stan Lee and Marvel about my original superhero. The end of that video featured yet another redesign of Bullet Boy that didn't hold back in taking yet another wild swing at a modern Bullet Boy, this time through the lens of the MCU. The goal was to make it feel more practical and realistic, while still having a really colorful and cosmic look to the blue accents. Of course, the suit has all the extra lines and details you'd expect to see in a stereotypically over-designed MCU suit, and while none of that was ever going to stick in a modern Bullet Boy design, there was one piece of it that made it all click: the visor. Just that small detail seemed like the answer to what was missing from his design up until that point. One of my biggest issues with the final Reboot Era suit was the flat rendering, but also the way the mask looked. But now with perfect protection for his eyes, some tweaks to the shades of gray, and the added dimension and tech lines to the blue accents on his suit, he really looked like he was ready to break through anything at full speed. made. At this point, I wasn't redesigning Bullet Boy for the sake of redesigning him like I did in the past. This design was made for a reason, created for the purpose of rebooting his series. Now, something I noticed while diving through old drawings for this video were the dates on each drawing. Something that might seem insignificant, but when I thought back to the time in my life where I made these, it all made perfect sense. Why, despite not getting any new comics or having his world truly explored, why Bullet Boy has stuck with me all this time. Every date on one of these drawings roughly lines up with every major move my family and I made as a kid. I think that as I was moving and I was growing up, maybe subconsciously I wanted Bullet Boy to move and grow and change with me. He was my superhero. He was who I wanted to be in a superhero world, or at least that's how he was to me as a kid, dreaming of having these superpowers and living this super idealized life, having these powers and gadgets at your disposal. The fact that now I can really do justice to that younger part of myself is really cool. And now that I've got a full catalog of designs behind me, I think I've got a good idea of what the modern Bullet Boy could look like in a future timeline. Let's get drawing. I really wanted to make sure that this future design takes the best parts from every era. The power core from the classic era that implies at this point it's already happened. The aerodynamic helmet that highlights his matured status as a hero and reminds us of the technologically advanced times he lives in, and the wacky footwear that gives extra lift to his every step. And of course, the familiar blue and silver from the modern era to tie it all together. I can really imagine this Bullet Boy design absolutely ripping through anything he runs towards, tearing up future railways, navigating a perilous alien surface, or anything that comes between him and saving the day. Oh, and sharing the ropes with his niece, Brittany, and Damon's superpowered kid, something we'll have to get to in the future. But these are all of Bullet Boy's redesigned suits to date, and I think it's safe to say that Bullet Boy is only getting better with age. I hope that by looking back at these old suit redesigns, it inspires you to keep working on your own superhero universe and have new perspective on the fact that if you keep working and you're always trying to grow and improve, you can do anything you set your mind to. Whether you're drawing with paper and pencil or the nicest drawing tablet and software out there, if I can do it, you can do it too. You can get Bullet Boy number 1 and 2 digitally or physically on my website, and even get a Bullet Boy plush. And if you want to keep watching me build my superhero universe, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy watching this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.